Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Jaharn, and as you probably know by now, I am absolutely obsessed with upcycling. For this episode, I'm going to show you how you can transform a thrifted bedsheet into a twin set. But let's quickly rewind. So it's June at the moment, and in about 3.5 months, I'm going to be heading off to Bali with my family, which I'm so excited about. As you can see behind me, I've got some clothes on a rack and I have already started planning what I'll be taking with me to Bali. If there's one thing I love about traveling, it's obviously what I pack in my suitcase. And this trip is absolutely no exception. I will be implementing my packing color theory. And basically that means I'll choose 2 to 3 colors that pair really well together, and I'll make sure that the clothes I select are within those colors, and any gaps that need filling in between will be filled with black and white pieces. This is something I've been doing for years, and I know I should do another video on it soon, so stay tuned for that because it really helps me refine my packing. It helps me from becoming overwhelmed, packing too much. It allows me to create a ton of outfit combinations with just a few pieces. I've been thinking a lot about what I want to take to Bali, and one thing that I've been looking for is a matching set. I've been thrifting, I've been looking online and obviously looking at shops when I walk past them, and honestly I haven't found anything. And when I went thrifting a few weeks ago, I had a look at the fabric section, which is typically filled with blankets, bed sheets, doona covers, placemats, dead stock fabric, and I noticed this red bed sheet. The color is absolutely beautiful, and then I realized that I could actually make my own matching twin set. So that's what this entire episode is about. Now, the thing about my upcycling projects is I like to be able to share them immediately. So this is going to be quite an interesting experience for me because I won't be able to actually wear this until we get to Bali in about 3.5 months because it is winter here. So I'm really excited to get to Bali, to wear it and to enjoy it, and also obviously be able to share the final reveal with you. And I'm so excited you're watching this because this project has been 4 months in the making. When I saw this bedsheet at the charity shop, I was blown away by the color of the fabric. It's the most gorgeous ruby red, and while I wouldn't use this on a bed in our home, I was very excited to use it to make an upcycled top and skirt set. The first task is to cut the fabric and make the skirt. I use a very simple design that doesn't require a pattern. It's very common and has a simple elastic waistband. I've made lots of these skirts from maxi to midi and mini for as long as I can remember, and it's never failed me. The top is going to be sleeveless, so I decided to balance it out with a maxi skirt. Obviously, you can make the skirt midi or mini length. It really is up to you, and no matter the length, the steps will remain the same. For the length of the skirt, I used another maxi skirt as a guide and added 5 centimeters along the top and bottom hem for sewing allowance. For the waist, I used a measuring tape to measure around my waist, which I multiplied by 2.5. I love high-waisted skirts, but you may like them to sit on your hips. Whichever you prefer, that's where you should be taking your measurements from. Next, I ironed and sewed down the bottom hem using a straight stitch. Then I joined the 2 ends together with the underside facing up and sewed down the middle hem from the bottom of the skirt to the top of the skirt. I should also mention that I'm reversing over the stitches at each start and end point, tying a double knot with the loose thread and trimming the excess thread off using scissors. Following this, I ironed down the top hem, placed a long piece of elastic underneath and used sewing pins to keep the elastic in place. Then I sewed the hem. There are many different ways to sew an elastic waistband, but for me, I prefer to place the elastic underneath the hem while I sew it down instead of sewing first and then feeding the elastic through using something like a chopstick. I simply remove the sewing pins before guiding the fabric through. Sometimes the speed of the stitching is a little fast and I have to remove the pins quickly, but if that happens, I simply reduce the speed of the stitching, and while it may take a little bit longer to finish, it's definitely a more calming experience. As you're sewing along the top hem, remember to secure the elastic at the first end to stop it from falling back through while you're sewing it down. When you get to the end, make sure you stop sewing and leave an opening where the two ends of the elastic meet. Put the skirt on, pull the elastic until it sits comfortably, then tie off the elastic and cut any excess elastic off, then sew down the remaining hem. However, this is actually something I don't do. I always leave a gap in the hem so I'm able to adjust the tightness of the elastic whenever I want. Sometimes I like the waist to be super tight and fitted, other days I like it more relaxed and loose fitting. It's a little hack of mine that I have been using for over 20 years, and I simply tie a small double bow at the back, which I tuck in whenever I'm wearing the skirt. And now it's time to make the top. I decided to use one of my own tops for the pattern for two reasons. The design is simple and therefore it'll be quite easy to draft a pattern, and it's also my favorite top. Jason bought this for me last summer and I've always wanted to make a few different versions of it using different fabrics, so this project is perfect to test it out. I placed the top onto the fabric, making sure it was flat, and then I traced around it using some of my mum's old fabric chalk. I really need to get a new chalk pencil because these aren't very easy to use. I traced around the top and the back to give me two pieces of fabric. I cut around the lines, leaving about 4 centimeters for sewing allowance. The top that I have is actually lined and there are some darts in the front, but I won't be going to the trouble of doing that, just simply because this fabric is made from a thick but lightweight cotton, and I'm quite happy just to see how it sits without any darts at the front. I made small cuts around the neckline and the arms to make it easier to sew the hem down later on, but I made sure not to cut all the way down to the chalk line. I left about 1 centimeter for the straight stitch. Whenever I'm sewing a hem, I always like to iron down the hem first because I find it so much easier when I'm working on the sewing machine. So I did exactly the same for this top. I used an iron to fold the hems over and to keep them in place for sewing in the next step. Then I sewed the hem down. I started from the right side and sewed a straight stitch all the way around to the other side. Then I sewed down the collar. Once I had finished sewing the front of the top, I repeated this step for the back of the top. I also trimmed the excess fabric from around the arms and the collar. I placed the top piece onto the back piece, undersides facing up, and sewed along the shoulder seam. For the ties at the side of the top, I didn't want to have to make my own, and I thought about using some leftover ribbon, but then I got an idea to use the trimming from the bedsheet, which honestly ended up being such a genius idea because it looked so professional. I cut 4 ties, and then it was as simple as sewing 1 tie onto each top. And honestly, it was so easy, and I am so happy with how the ties look. And then it was time to put my new outfit on and style it with a few of my favorite accessories. I tied little bows on the side, and I was so happy I used the trimming from the bedsheet to make these ties. They look so good. I accessorized my outfit with a colourful beaded necklace I bought in Bali, with my white sandals, a thrifted straw bag, and my favourite sunglasses. And here it is. I cannot wait to hear what you think. I'm actually still in shock. I made this using a secondhand bedsheet, but honestly, you cannot tell it all. And the beautiful thing about making this skirt is that you can tailor it to suit whatever length you want, and you can sew it to sit on your waist like me or on your hips. You could even create a slit to show off your legs. If I make this twin set again, I would multiply my waist measurement by 2 instead of 2.5 because I found the skirt was a bit full for my liking. But overall, I am so happy with how it turned out. It is extremely comfortable to wear, lightweight and breezy, and I got a lot of compliments, which was genuinely a really big surprise.